Hey y'all, it's Sarah. Today we're going to be making a chicken and sausage paella recipe out of my Instant Pot book. Now before we get started, I just want to show you kind of how I lay out a new recipe that I'm not familiar with to make it easier once I'm ready to cook. So the first thing I did was I got all of my ingredients out that I couldn't pre-measure. So like my peas that are in this freezer bag, I'm gonna microwave them in that bag or add them out in the bag, whatever the recipe tells me. So I go ahead and get that out. I know I need this turmeric and I've got paprika over here as well. So I've got those out. I even got the measuring spoons that I'll need, as well as a spoon for my Instant Pot dish. Got my tomato paste, got salt, garlic, and my chicken broth, as well as my rice. So I went ahead and got all of that out, and then I also went ahead, pre-measured and cut my meats and my veggies, as well as my chicken broth that you saw over there. So this here, you can see, we've got my chicken. Over here is the chicken sausage, that's the sausage piece of it. We've got red peppers, onions, we've got pre-measured rice over here, as well as the chicken broth. Now I put the chicken broth in a microwavable bowl because that's what the recipe said. So now I've got everything out that I need for the recipe, so it should be a little bit easier, right? So I'm just gonna read through this recipe and walk you through it. So first it says to combine the chicken broth and the saffron in a microwave safe liquid bowl, cover it and heat it up for 3 minutes. Now, I went to the grocery store and saffron threads were about $17 for a size like this, and we don't live on a budget that way. So I quickly Googled what can I use instead, and they said turmeric was a good alternative. It's really just saffron threads are just a spice, so it shouldn't be a big deal. The recipe calls for a pinch, so I'm just gonna open it up. We'll say that's about a pinch. It wasn't all coming out at the same time. Just put that away. So it said microwave it for 3 minutes. Another thing I do to kind of help me keep organized in the kitchen is now that I've used the turmeric and my chicken broth, I'll put them away. Only takes about a second and just kind of helps me be organized by the end of it. All right, so now it says select the saute setting on the Instant Pot and, heat the olive oil and garlic for about 2 minutes. So I've got my 6-quart Instant Pot today to use. So we'll turn you this way. I've got an 8-quart as well, but I thought that this recipe would be okay. So just a drizzle of olive oil. If you've seen me before, I would use sometimes the, was it plugged in? Step 1, is it plugged in? I would use coconut oil instead, but usually that's just to coat the bottom. So I figured today I would actually use olive oil for flavor. So I selected the saute function on the front, and then we need 2 tablespoons. It calls for 2 garlic cloves minced, but I don't like mincing garlic, so I just buy this minced garlic in a jar. Normally I like to buy things fresh and do it myself, but you know, not everything. So now I'll put the garlic away. All right. We can go ahead and put this pre-measured rice away. Also, just to kind of keep things tidy. Okay, so the next step while that's going, it says after 2 minutes, we're gonna add the onion and the bell pepper. So I'll go ahead and get that and bring it over here. Now this called for any color of a pepper. So I already had a red pepper, so I didn't buy a new one. And this is just what we're gonna use today. And it called for an entire medium yellow onion. Now, Simon, that's my fiance, does not like onions, so I used about half of one. You still see it's pretty full in there, really just to get that onion flavor. So that's heating up in there. And then the next step was say, stir the tomato paste, paprika, salt, chicken, and sausage into the pot and saute. So we will just wait a minute. I'll let this up later. Give this a little stir. You can hear it. It is sizzling. All right, I'm gonna add my onion. And my red pepper. And it says to saute it for about 3 minutes. So I'm just gonna mix it up with the garlic really well. And leave it in there. Okay, so now I'm gonna get the, bring over my chicken and my sausage. We've got my paprika here to measure, which we're gonna have 3 teaspoons of that. If you really wanted to, you could pre-measure that. I don't. And then we've got half a teaspoon of salt. And then we'll need just a tablespoon of this tomato paste. My chicken broth is done, so I am gonna grab it as well as a can opener. Chicken broth is hot. Always wear your pot holder. Give us another stir. You want to make sure that you're constantly stirring the onion so that you don't create any browned spots on the bottom. If you do that, you could easily get what's called a burn error when you're actually cooking. And it's really just more annoying than anything. I need to get a knife. Because if you get a burn error while it's cooking, you have to stop the Instant Pot. So you have to turn it off. You have to do a quick release. Then you gotta use your spoon. So it's not done at that point, right? It's in the middle of cooking and you got this error. And then you gotta stop cooking, you gotta open the lid and scrape the bottom. You can't really tell where the brown spots are, right? Turn it back on and hope for the best. When I first got my Instant Pot, I definitely got that error a good bit. Okay, so we need, I think I said a tablespoon of this tomato paste. So we will add that. Get on in there. We need 3/4 of a teaspoon of this smoked paprika. 1, 2, 3. And we need half a teaspoon of my salt that I didn't realize was not open. There we go. All right, here's my salt. So it said to stir that. I'm gonna go ahead and stir that up before I add the chicken and sausage. Chicken. So we have 1 pound of chicken chicken breast that I cut up into 1-inch dices. And then we have this spinach and gruyere, that's cheese, chicken sausage. Our recipe, and I think paella normally comes with spicy chicken sausage or some type of spicy sausage, but I couldn't find it at the store, so I went ahead and got a different kind of chicken sausage. The key is to have it pre-cooked. You know, fully cooked sausage. So just really mixing this up well, and then reading on. Chicken, okay, so it's at about 3 minutes. I'm gonna let this sit for a second, put a couple things away. This is just what I do to help keep myself sane and organized while I'm cooking. You don't need to get the chicken all the way cooked on this saute function. It's just getting it a little bit brown. Or not, I guess not brown, but less opaque. Alright, so now it says to arrange the chicken and veggies in a fairly even level or layer. So you basically, right now it's a little lumpy in there, you want to flatten it out. You're going to sprinkle the rice on top of the chicken in as even a layer as possible. So I've got my 1.5 cups of rice here. Then you're going to pour the broth mixture over the rice. So this is our seasoned chicken broth. And then make sure it's all submerged. Looks like we're not adding the peas until the end. So once we get started, I'll put those back in the freezer. All right. So I'll show you kind of what this looks like. I'm going to turn my saute function off. Whew. All right. I think that's fairly even. So here, you can see we got our chicken, veggies. You see that steam coming off? All right, now we're gonna add the rice, like it said. It said in fairly even layers, so I guess you just need to slowly do that. All the way around. Okay, let's see that. We've got our rice added. Let me tighten up that camera. There we go. And now it's going to add the broth. So this isn't as hot anymore, thankfully. Pour all over. See that turmeric? Okay. Now it says just to make sure that everything is submerged in the cooking liquid. So I'm just going to give it a little press down with the flat side of my spoon, just to make sure, you know, everything's in contact with that broth. Especially down in the middle. All right, I think it's ready to go. What do you think? All right, so now it says to secure the lid, set it to, obviously, set the pressure release to sealing. Oh, I thought that said venting for a second. I was like, that doesn't make sense. All right, sealing. We're gonna do pressure cook or manual, so whatever you got on your Instant Pot. We're gonna do 15 minutes on high. Yep, and then we will hit, oh, mine doesn't, that one doesn't have a start button. That's right. Okay, so you can see she's going. So it's on right now, and you can see because it says pressure right here, it means it's coming to pressure. So it's gonna take about 5 minutes to come to pressure and then 15 minutes to cook. So we will come back in about 20 minutes. All right, so it's done cooking, but we're gonna let it naturally release for 10 minutes. So you can see on the timer right here, it's currently at 1 minute. Basically, naturally release means allowing the pressure to naturally come out instead of forcing it with the sealing to venting toggle. So we'll wait till it reaches 10 minutes and then we'll be back. All right, y'all, we're letting it release now. We turned our toggle switch into the venting position, letting that all come out. You're gonna need your peas now. And then I went ahead and got my meal prep containers out so that we could go ahead, as well as the scale. So meal prep containers and the scale so that we could go ahead and do that. The recipe says it makes enough for 6, but you never know what they are using for measurements, so we will see. Here we go. Had you a little crooked. All right, here we are. I'm gonna turn this off now. Whew, steam. Again, don't have your face right over it. You'll get a natural facial, but it's gonna be hot. So I'm gonna go ahead and use my pot holders, take this out, show you what this looks like. It looks delicious. Yeah, it does. It smells so good. So it says to take your peas, so it calls for 1 cup of frozen peas. I'm gonna use a 12-ounce bag. I think it's fine if you have more vegetables than they call for. And I guess what's gonna happen is it's going to cook in here. So we put the peas in here and just gonna stir it all up and let it sit for about 2 minutes. Yeah, this looks delicious. Can't wait to eat it. Although I don't know how it's gonna make 6, but we'll see. Everything is typically best served hot, but I think that any rice dishes taste really good when they've been leftovers. So while we're just letting that sit, I wanted to show you the cookbook again. So this is the Instant Pot Ultimate Cookbook. I've made a few different recipes out of here. This is by Coco Morante, not sure how you say that name, but the chicken paella dish was in here. I do usually alter just a little bit based on what they have, but it looked really good, so this is what we did. So again, it said it should have taken 35 minutes of cook time, 10 minutes of prep time, and it will serve 6, I guess PR's pressure time, so that's an Instant Pot, and then 6 minutes of, or 6 servings. It says 0 minutes of prep. So, I mean, you gotta prep the chicken, you gotta prep the chicken sausage, you gotta prep the peppers and the onions. So I'm not sure what they mean by 0 minutes of prep time, but it still didn't take us that long. So let's go ahead and measure this bad boy out. Get this nice and close to my meal prep container. Alright, so the ones that I give Simon usually have a little bit more. And because we have a mixture of chicken and protein and vegetables, I think I'm gonna give him like 16 ounces in one container. That's a pound. But, I mean, that looks like a decent serving. So let's do 1 more for him. And then make sure we got 2 for me. So make sure you zero out your scale. So when I went away for about 30 minutes, I washed the dishes and got my meal prep containers out. and fed the dogs, and one is still crying for food. I don't know if we're gonna get 6 out of this. Okay. All right, so we'll do a couple for myself. That does not seem right. It didn't really do anything the first time I put stuff in it. I'm gonna just reset. Zero. Now let's see it. That's better. It told me that like 1 scoop was 0 ounces. I think I'm gonna do about 12 ounces for myself. I like to get about 7 to 8 ounces of protein. So I figure 12 should be sufficient for that in between. All right, so let me show you what I got here. So I've got, I guess I can just leave you there. I've got 2 this size, which is about 1 pound each. I've got 2 this size, so same container, different amount of contents, and this is about 12 ounces. So that's 4 dishes there. And then I do have a little bit left over, but it's not enough to make a full dish. So what I just do is I take the leftovers and add it to each one until I'm out. Might take a bite. There's a piece of sausage in here. I'm gonna leave it and take a bite. There you go. And that's it. So we got 4 servings out of this, not 6. Like I said, you never know what the recipe is measuring their serving by. So you just kind of take guess and check, figure it out the first time, and then go from there. So let me know if you like this recipe and stay tuned for more. Thank you.